Very much. Can you see?
Yes,
okay.
Perfectly.
So, good evening, everyone, and it's a really pleasure to be here with you this evening. And as Francesco already anticipated, today's webinar is about blockchain technologies and their application to the wine sector. Before starting with the webinar, I want to give you a very brief overview on how the webinar is organized. For the first 20-25 minutes, I will explain you in a more theoretical way the main features of blockchain technologies and its application to the agri-food sector, analyzing also the advantages and limits of these technologies. And then I will give the floor to Edoardo Erlini, who will provide you some interesting case studies of blockchain application in the wine sector. So before going into deeper details with the technology itself, I think it's really important to understand the context we are working on. In this slide, I decided to put some of the most important risks, issues that are related to the wine sector, and also the needs of companies that in a certain way arise from these issues. As you can see from the picture, two of the main problems that nowadays characterize the wine sector are, of course, counterfeiting, as well as the risk of imitation of a product. These kind of risks can be solved in a certain way through some systems, technologies that somehow are able to collect data and also validate and communicate them in order to guarantee product authentication. These kind of risks are mainly related to those products that have a target market which is quite large. And in fact, as I think you already know, larger is the market, higher is the risk of frauds. Moreover, always considering the number of markets to which a certain product is destined to, another important problem can be related to the need of companies in tracing their lots quite easily and fast, both for management but also for quality and safety reasons. So also supply chain traceability is another important need of wine company nowadays. Finally, the last issues that I want to present you, and I think that blockchain is really related to, is the risk of damage the reputation of a certain company as well as a certain product. And in order to solve it, stakeholders in general, consumers in particular, but stakeholders in general, are asking more and more frequently to have complete access to the information about a specific product, about the entire life cycle of a specific product. In particular, related to this topic, but in general to the main topics of transparency, authenticity, and traceability, nowadays they are basically managed through paper-based systems. Fortunately, in recent years, also small and medium companies started to implement some Internet of Things systems that, of course, are significantly more efficient than paper-based ones because they allow to obtain data and information, to collect information at all stages of production, processing, and distribution. However, these kind of systems, despite being more efficient, are really centralized and monopolistic, leading to one of the main problems related to information, which is information asymmetry. What does it mean? Basically, that all the information about a specific product is generally conserved, stored, and managed by only one entity, who decide the people that can have access to this information and the modality to which these people can access them. So in order to solve, in this context, in order to solve all these issues and to reduce a little bit all the risks associated to the wine sector and especially to the transparency of data and the traceability issues, blockchain technologies seem to be quite promising, especially considering their potential to improve the traceability performance of a company by guaranteeing both security and also transparency of data. But why blockchain has this potential? Well, basically blockchain can be included in a wider category, bigger category of technologies which are named distributed ledger technologies, or DLT. These technologies are characterized by two main elements. On one end, we have the ledger, which is basically a register, so a series of information, data, transaction, any kind of information that want to be stored somewhere. And then we have the nodes, so the entities that in real world are basically servers that store a updated copy of this register, of this ledger. So from this picture, we can see one of the main characteristics and features of blockchain that makes it particularly suitable to solve the problems related to traceability and transparency of the information, which is the fact that once a specific information is uploaded in a blockchain, or generally in a distributed ledger technology, it's quite difficult to lose this information because a copy of it is stored in several different by several different entities. Specifically, with reference to blockchain, basically it's a distributed ledger technology where all information are stored within a block. And these blocks are connected to each other, creating this chain. Of course, there are a lot of features and aspects that can be treated about the block of a blockchain. I'm not a technician, so today I want to present you only what I think are the most important elements, aspects of a block and the blockchain functioning in order to understand its potential in applying these technologies to the agri-food sector and wine sector specifically. According to me, the three most important information elements that characterize a block are data, the hash, and the hash of the previous block. Now let's understand better what they are. With the term of data, of course, we identify any kind of information, transaction that can be, for instance, the movement of money from one person to another. We can be the registration of a specific service provided by a company to another, which can be simply data or information about something. Okay, and the data are basically the information which are inside this ledger, so which are uploaded on the block. The other really important element is the hash. The hash can be defined as a sort of fingerprint of the block, and basically it's an alphanumeric code that directly originates from the data that has been uploaded on the block. So it's unique for the specific block and is strictly dependent on the data contained in it. This is really important, as we will see in a few minutes. Finally, the last important element is the hash of the previous block, which is the element that connects one block to the previous one. Okay, let's see why the hash of the block and the hash of the previous block are so important, and how they are able to guarantee the immutability of data uploaded on a blockchain. Well, basically, as I said before, the hash of a block directly originates from the data that has been uploaded on this block. Once someone tries to change an already uploaded data in a block, of course, also the hash of this block changes. But changing the hash of the block means that every block following this one, this is clearly explained by the picture on the right. So for instance, it's the case, the third block and the following ones, in a certain way, detaches from the chain. And therefore, we obtain a sort of another version of the chain, which is completely different from the version that is stored on all the nodes, all the servers that are part of the network. So for this reason, it's quite easy to find out some modifications to the change, and therefore it's quite difficult to tamper with data. That means that every time someone wants to upload the data on a blockchain, it needs to be sure that the data is correct. And if it's necessary to modify this data, it's not possible to directly modify the data itself, but it's necessary to upload in a certain way another information stating, okay, the previous information that I uploaded is not correct. So everything is completely traced and remain immutable. And this is one of the main reasons why blockchain is particularly useful for transparency, of course. Here you can find another important element of blockchain, and that is basically the element that moved the blockchain away from only the financial sector, and blockchain started to be applied, thanks to the introduction of these smart contracts, blockchain started to be applied also to other sectors, for instance, agri-food sector. Basically, a smart contract is a program that can be uploaded on a blockchain and that can perform a certain operation according to a specific input. That means every time we upload a data, according to the data we have uploaded, we obtain a specific output, something happens, basically. And of course, smart contracts can be programmed according to the necessity of a company. So for instance, it's possible to automatize the movement of money. It's possible to automatize the calculation of payment due. It's possible, for instance, giving a certain performance to provide a specific acknowledgement or a certification. And of course, the options are potentially endless. I reported here some interesting videos that clearly explain you these main aspects about blockchain and why it could be really useful, especially when applied to the supply chain and not only to the financial sector area. Okay, here I reported this picture in order to briefly present you the how to pass from the physical flow of information in the real supply chain to the information that are stored inside the blockchain. Basically, of course, since blockchain is a technology, every time we want to upload something on a blockchain, we have, first of all, to digitalize this information. A thing that I didn't say to you before is that it's possible to upload in a block any kind of information in any form. For instance, it's possible to upload documents, it's possible to upload images, videos, text, and any data, any kind of information we want to upload. So to move from the physical flow to the blockchain network is important to digitalize this information. And one of the methods which is more efficient in doing so is, of course, by integrating this kind of technology to other technologies, such as sensors, that could, in a certain way, reduce the risks of human error, because a specific data directly move from the real world, so the real supply chain, to the blockchain without the intervention of humans, reducing the risk of errors, of course. So this is one of the most secure way. However, it's possible to upload information to digitalize information in, of course, several different ways. Once all the information from the real supply chain has been uploaded to the blockchain, the consumers or any kind of stakeholder that are interested to have access to this information can simply, through generally an electronic device that can be a telephone or a smartphone, a tablet, a PC, have access to them. I think that Edoardo will explain you this clearer later. And an interesting thing of blockchain, for instance, an interesting application is that the primary product producers, for instance, producers of grapes, can have access to this blockchain and can, for instance, know where the wine which has been produced with its grapes has been sold, which is an information that nowadays it's not so easy to find out. So it's useful not only for consumers and stakeholders, authorities, and so on, but also from the internal, all the actors, the internal actors of the chain. Okay, before concluding with my presentation and leaving the floor to Edoardo, since basically at the university I work with sustainability, I want you to explain briefly an interesting application of blockchain that started to be studied quite recently, which is the use of blockchain in order with the aim to trace not only the product and the history of the product, but also sustainability. In fact, one of the main characteristics of blockchain, which is the total transparency of the information that has been stored and uploaded, that in a certain way are aimed to confirm and verify the processes, the characteristics of the products, the performance of the company. So one of these main characteristics is completely in line with one of the most important principles of sustainability, which is complete transparency, transparent communication. So of course, the functioning of the blockchain itself is completely in line from this point of view to one of the sustainability principles. Moreover, as we have already seen with the smart contract, the blockchain could facilitate the certification procedure thanks to the automation that can be implemented from a smart contract. And finally, also implementation of blockchain within a company could be also interesting from an economic point of view, because on one hand, of course, it could allow an easier access to incentives, while on the other end, a lot of the companies that already implemented this kind of technology reported to have observed an increase in the income, of course, especially in the long term. However, always with reference to sustainability, at the moment, one of the main problems related to blockchain is related to the environmental impact of this technology. Because, of course, since it's a technology, it requires a lot of mechanical, electronical elements in real life, a lot of computational power, that means a lot of energy. As you can see from this picture, in 2018, only the Bitcoin platform, which is of course the most famous platform using blockchain, consumed more energy than the entire Switzerland. So of course the environmental issue is still a big problem. Fortunately, nowadays there are a lot of platforms that try to compensate these, to counterbalance this high environmental impact, which is of course related to the nature of the instrument itself, by financing or carrying out different sustainability initiatives that in a certain way can reduce their impact. So also if it's possible to implement blockchain for sustainability reasons without being too much impactful on the environment at the moment. Okay, so before to conclude, I want to briefly summarize what we have seen so far, and to summarize them as the advantages and limits of this technology, referring to its application to the agri-food sector. So first of all, as we have already said, of course, the fact that this technology allows for the uploading and the storage of information in an immutable and secure way. I think that I didn't say before is that information uploaded on a blockchain are generally encrypted, so they are not. So there is also this layer of security around the information, every kind of information uploaded. So this immutable and secure storage of information is really important, both for sustainability reasons and also for the management internal management of the company, and also in case of, for instance, inspections, necessity to go through certification procedure, and so on. Another thing that we have said before, that these information are also accessible to potentially any actor of the chain. It depends, of course, on the characteristics of the blockchain that has been implemented. However, we can say that it's potentially accessible to anyone, and this is a very important aspect, especially with the related to the reputation of the company. So this element could solve the reputational issue that we've seen at the beginning of this presentation. However, as I said before, one of the most secure way to guarantee the consistency of the data uploaded on a blockchain is integrating it with the other IoT systems. Finally, a thing that we have not seen before, but it's quite interesting, according to me, is the fact that sometimes blockchain can also be used for internal management of data of a specific business activity. So it's not only storage of data, but could be also used in other ways. That, for instance, I think about this company that rent their machines, and they created this pay-per-use rent system that is based on a blockchain technology. On the contrary, however, of course, the cost of the technology, of course, it depends a lot on the amount of data that are uploaded and the characteristics of the technology implemented. However, the costs are quite high for a company, especially at the beginning. So looking at the short term, the issue of the high environmental impact is, of course, still a problem. And also a thing that we have not explored so far is the necessity of a know-how inside the company. This thing could be explained well by Edoardo, but of course, in order to implement a blockchain technology, to use it in the best way, it's necessary to at least to know something about it, and to be quite to be enough confident with the topic. Another important issue at the moment is related to the fact that there is no common way to implement blockchain in a company, but generally they are case-by-case solutions. This could be an advantage for the company, because a company can decide to implement a blockchain structure, blockchain traceability system according to its needs, but on the other end, sometimes it's a little bit higher in costs, and also it's more difficult, for instance, for authorities or certification companies, I think, that to control, to be sure about the information that has been uploaded. Finally, especially with reference to Europe, the last criticism related to the blockchain at the moment is a lack of legislation. In fact, the blockchain, there is only a very rude definition of DLT, so distributed ledger technologies. There is a regulation, more specific regulation, that refers to the financial use of blockchain, but there is not a lot about the blockchain technology in general and its application to the supply chain. Of course, the European Union is performing a sort of experimentation that will last until 2026, if I remember well. And the aim is basically to apply blockchain to different supply chains in order to find out some possible legislative gaps or issues, problems, and try to solve it with a common regulation. But of course, at the moment, there is no legislation that specifically manage and refer to these technologies. Okay, now I can leave the floor to Edoardo, that will present you very interesting case studies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elisa. So now, Edoardo, I will ask you to share your screen and your presentation. Elisa, you can turn off your webcam and microphone. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And
okay, you can see perfectly your screen. You can go.
Okay, you can see my screen?
Yes, perfectly. You can go.
Okay. So first of all, I want to really thank you, Elisa, because she spoke about the most difficult and boring part. So it's not easy to transmit what blockchain is. It's like understand how to ride a bicycle. It's way easier to take the bike and start riding. Maybe you are going to fall a couple of times, but you are really to making the experience. And this is the same about the blockchain. It's a complex context, but to be used is way simpler than you can think. And now we start seeing how you can use this technology inside your company. So a brief introduction about EZ Lab. We are an innovative small medium enterprises, a software house, and we are set in Padova in Veneto, really close to Venice. So we are in the land of Prosecco. And we are specialized in implementing the blockchain technology related to the supply chain data tracking. So we are helping the company to work with the data they already have, implementing the blockchain technology. And we are working a lot with the wine industry, and we made the first ever project in wine in 2016. Together with EY, we made the project for Cantina Placido Volpone. The first ever wine tracking blockchain was the Falanghina by Placido Volpone. So those are some of our partners. You can see also Placido Volpone, other company, not only from the agri-food world, but from different worlds. So let's start from we will start before. So there are risks that needs to be managed in the wine business, and every single company has the need to understand how to better manage the risk. We already spoke about the way you can manage risk and what are the needs, but what is important to really say here is that every need is related to the data management. What is really important here is to understand that the most of the problems are related to the data management. It's not necessarily a bad data management, but is an incomplete, in the most of cases, data management. And what we need to work with the blockchain is to have a better understanding of the power of the data I have and what I can turn those data into value. So first of all, the blockchain can be applied in every single step of the food chain of value and of the wine chain of value. So you can provide the claims about your product, for example, the origin, the way you are making the wine, all the parts related to the tracking of the wine, but also the value of sustainability. The SDGs can be tracked really well with the blockchain. It can help increasing your company reputation. This is a really special thing, and I will be back later on this. And you can fight against counterfeiting, and you can use it also in your internal storage. Elisa already said that. You can use the blockchain for the data storage, for the internal, and to have better control on your own data. What is the problem here? The problem is that data management is a cost. Why? Because you need a software to manage the data. You need people able to use the software. So the most of all, the data management is a cost that the company have, and it's a cost that you have because the law obliges you to have this kind of cost. And you need to be careful, because if you're not careful, you are going to waste a lot of money in this. So I need to find a way to manage data in the most smartest way. I need to find a way to carve value coming from the data. It can't be just a cost. Data must be a cost and a value at the same time. What is the philosophy of the blockchain? Well, the philosophy of the blockchain is using those data to create a new trust by going beyond the trust. If the consumer, if the market, if your distributor can check the data on the blockchain, data that are transparent, data that are guaranteed, data on which your reputation depends, You don't need trust because you can directly verify what is inside this bottle of wine and why this wine is special. All the value of your product and your company can be put inside the blockchain and can be visible to the final consumer thanks to a combination of blockchain and digital label. Digital label is a simple landing page that you can check starting from the QR code or another tag that is put inside the bottle. So what we want here is giving value to your data, and this is the most important thing. And how we can give the value to your data? Well, first of all, we need to understand that the blockchain can give transparency to your data. So once you put the data inside the blockchain, this is immutable. So you cannot change this data. You can correct the data, it's not a problem. You can correct, this is possible, but is always visible the correction. So you cannot hide, you cannot play dirty. Everything is visible. And this is interesting. Why? Because what you are going to declare needs to be real. Here again, we're going back with the reputation. In the blockchain, you are not putting only data, you are putting your reputation, you are putting your work, you are putting your products. So you want to put in the blockchain the data that you want to share to the market, that you don't have problem to share with the market. And this is really important because we don't have an obligation by law to put this data or data on the blockchain. You decide what you want to put in the blockchain. And you need to be sure that you put genuine data. You commit a mistake and writing the data is not a problem, but you need to be sure of the quality of your product. It makes no sense to write in the blockchain fake data or shading data or something like that, because you cannot alter that. You cannot cancel, you cannot mutate the data. So you need to use the data that give you the value to the product and that you are sure about. And by doing so, you can enhance all the efficiency of your supply chain. You can have all the story of starting from a single product, a single bottle, of the transformation procedures, all the single step by step, and you can show this to the market. There is also another problem about security, because if you want, you can put inside the blockchain encrypted data. So if I want to show that my grapes are coming from a specific supplier, a primary producer, but I don't want to show the name of the producer because I fear maybe that some competitor can make him an offer, I can put the data encrypted. So I ensure that the grapes are coming from the same supplier with this code. And if I have any kind of legislation problem, I can decrypt the code and show it to the authority that the grapes I declared that was coming from this specific producer. So there are a lot of things that you can do inside the blockchain, but the only thing you can discover is by using it. So a lot of potential inside the blockchain. The general idea is to have all those information that makes sense. So not every single information, but only those information that gives value, that makes sense, directly inside the QR code, and so inside the bottle, and give to the consumer the possibility to scan the QR code and see all the information inside the bottle. And this is really important because you can get the fidelization of your consumer by explaining why my wine is different, what is special inside this wine. You can involve your consumer inside the story of your company, of your winemaking, and this from a product by product. So every product has its own history, every product has its own feature. And I want to expose it to the market because, you know, everyone is interested in understanding how a wine is made, what is special, why I want a price, what are the data of sustainability that are inside the wine. And you can put this data, if you have it, in your traceability. So when we start to work in a project, the first important point is, you already know, the data. We need to collect the data. So we need to understand how your supply chain works, what are the borders of the traceability you want to set, and what are the most important phases and data inside. Once we have all the data, we can create inside our digital platform the digital supply chain. So you have a copy of your supply chain where all the data are flowing from your management system, from your ERP to our platform. Then we register the data inside of our platform, and once they are here, they are also inside the blockchain and inside the digital label. And this is how the data flow works. We will be back to the data flow later because this is a really important part. But what is important is once you set the project, it's going on alone. So you don't need to work to put new data, etc. You set your ERP to transmit the correct data to the supply chain platform. You have your digital traceability inside the supply chain platform that automatically registers the data inside the blockchain and automatically creates the digital label. So once the project has been set, you don't need to work too much on it. You don't need to work only to the specific marketing of commercial operation, but from the technical standpoint, everything is going on. So the supply chain, what kind of data we can put inside? You can decide what kind of data. Generally, we suggest to put the origin because this is something really interesting to know where the vineyards are, for example. Then you can have the I'm sorry, when you receive the grapes inside your company for the transformation. Generally, the most of the company decide to start in from this part because, of course, you have the data when you have the raw material inside your company. About the transformation product, it can be made in different ways because every wine is different. So you can have your specific way of making the wine recreated inside the digital traceability. And then if you have other information, you can put in other information. You can arrive also to the logistic, to the distribution, then bottlement of the wine. We are not obliged to put anything. You decide. The only thing that we ask for are the data. If you have data, then we can put this inside the blockchain to enlarge traceability. If you don't have the data, well, we can stop where we have the data and waiting and enlarge the traceability maybe in the future. Speaking about the data flow, this is a concept of the data flow. So we start from your ERP, we set the data that we are interested in. The data are transmitting to the platform by the API, is an international standard. Every management system is able to use the API, so you don't need to worry about this. And if you don't have an ERP, we can start also using an Excel file. So it's really simple. We just need a source of data. Once we have this source of data, we create a JSON file, another international standard, where we freeze the data. Why we freeze the data? To be sure that nobody is going to touch those data. The data are coming directly from the company because the data are your property. We are not able to touch the data. We don't want to touch the data. We just want the data to flow from your ERP to our platform, from our platform to the blockchain and to the digital level. And then you have your project. This is an example of something more. So how the data looks inside the blockchain. Well, the data inside the blockchain looks in this way. And why this is important? Because inside the blockchain, you can check the same data that you see inside the digital label, because it's a copy of the same JSON file. This is why it's important, the concept of the JSON freezing, because the same data are inside the platform, inside your ERP, inside the digital label, and inside the blockchain. And while you can modify data inside your system, you can modify data inside the digital label, but you cannot modify data inside the blockchain. And this is really important. This is the real important part from the technical point of view. This is what gives the trust. This is what gives the transparency. This is what gives the integrity of the data. You have the blockchain, you are sure that nobody is going to change those data. And it's important also for your company, because here you can check, for example, in the token part, that the issuer of this traceability is your company. and we apply a unique code for every company, and then we apply a unique code for every product, and we connect the product with the company and the lots, the batches of the specific product with the origin. So everyone can check that those data are genuine, are coming from your company. You have a unique code that is also yours. And in this way, you can prove the anti-counterfeiting. You can prove the customer that is genuine and you are the issuer of this one. This is a little bit technical, but it's really, really useful. And this is an example of the digital label. So what can I have in the digital label? Well, most of all, whatever you want. The idea is to have a part that is more related to marketing and commercial data. So if I have a consumer that is a little bit lazy and just wants to see some fancy pic, some videos, and share in the social page, he can do this. But if you want a consumer that want to discover how the wine is made, well, you have here an example of the traceability. You have the different phases here that you can see. You have some general details and you have some specific details there. And the same data that you have here, you have also inside the blockchain. This is about the product. So you can have the traceability related to the product. So we are tracking the economic data of the supply chain processing, but you can also add supply chain data related to environment, related to the sustainability. And here we have, for example, you can have the carbon footprint. If you have the carbon footprint data, you can add the carbon footprint data. If you have anything related to sustainable development goals, not only of the product, but also of your company, for example, you have the environmental balance, you can add it directly inside the blockchain. Why? To ensure the transparency, to ensure the integrity, to show the market that you are working in the proper way and you have nothing to add. And this is really important because the European Union is pushing for this kind of legislation, is giving money and financing to the company that are respecting the sustainable development goals and are able to prove it. This is fundamental. It's just not about writing I'm green because blah, blah, blah. It's about proving it. And blockchain nowadays is the only way to really prove that you're doing the things in the proper way. But there is not only sustainability. You can also use the blockchain for some special processing. I put an example of one of our customers. Here is an example for jamming underwater wines. This is a company that is making the aging of the wine under the sea. They are not using the bottle of their vineyard. They are helping the other companies that want to experiment a different kind of aging for their bottle, something new, something special, and they put the bottle under the water, 50 meters under the water in front of the coast of Portofino and other amazing location in Italy. And why is important for them the blockchain? Because they are tracking all the data that you can see here. They are tracking the pressure difference between the traditional aging and the underwater aging. They are tracking the constant temperature of the water to be sure that is managing the proper way. They are tracking the longevity, their molecularity, they are tracking the darkness, they are tracking a lot of data related of the specific of the aging under the water. And also they are tracking the environmental and sustainability data. So they are tracking the energy savings, how much energy I'm going to save by using the underwater wines, for example, because the temperature under the water is exactly the same that is inside a warehouse, a proper warehouse. They are using also, they are helping the local, oops, I'm sorry. You still see the screen? Okay. They are helping the company and the local community by going close to the winemaker to help them in doing something new. So using with the same wine I'm producing, I'm trying to do a different kind of aging, and I'm using the blockchain to verify everything and to have a clear view and to give to my customer a clear view of what I'm doing and what are the results. This is just another use of the blockchain in the wine sector. So all the problems that we saw before can be answered by the blockchain, because you can fight the counterfeiting with the system that we have. You can track all the supply chain and have all the data starting from the single bottle, if you are in need of the specific lot, going back to the order that originated this bottle of wine. You can have all the information that can distinguish your wine from the imitation and from any kind of fraud, etc. You can fight against any reputational problem because you can prove the genuinity of your data. You can distinguish from the other. You can distinguish from someone that is doing shady practices. You are different, and you can do this by the blockchain. This is the blockchain of value. So some of the most common fields in which the blockchain can give you a specific value. So the sustainability, the trust, the value of the company and the brands itself, the warranty of the certain data that are transmitted in the proper way, and also the efficiency inside the supply chain. So this is in the short time, the way you can use the blockchain to improve your data. And if you have time, I would like to discuss also some of the cons that Elisa underlined before, because I have something to say also about the cons that are true cons if you're using the blockchain in one way, but they are not really a problem if you're using the blockchain in the proper way. Thank you very much. If you want some information, scan my QR code and add me on LinkedIn or write me an email. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edoardo. So if for you is okay, I will leave this one as the last slide, so we can have the Q&A session here. Also, there is Ettore that is connected. So if you can, Ettore, you can turn on your webcam so that you can give a conclusion speech. There you are.
Ciao. Yes, I was following the presentation. Thank you very much, Francesco, and many thanks to Elisa and Edoardo. Yes, it was. The interesting story is that actually we can really consider, based on also on what the presenters gave to us, is to really include this digital technology in the context of the sustainability. So actually, 10 years ago, I was really not surprised, worried about it, because it was not so clear and was not so user-friendly. But up to date, this technology is part of the management. Should be part of management. I mean, that's it's becoming really essential for any funds that intend to implement the sustainability. So because the trend is the socio-economical scenario changing, consumers are asking, stakeholders are asking, and each company, each farmer concerning the wine has to consider to change their view, implementing this technology that today is not so difficult to implement. So that's, I mean, this is part of really of our chapter of materials that we are doing in webinar here with Vineyard related to the eco-resilience. If we want to become resilient and sustainable, let's see to include the blockchain technology in the farm management. So really thank you, because it was also much more clear to me that I'm working on these issues, but of course I mean more in practice, and just listening Elisa and Edoardo. Thank you, Francesco.
Thank you very much, Ettore. So we still have a few minutes to go on with questions. So I selected two of the questions that we received, and I would like to. So the first one may be Elisa or also Edoardo. You can help us out with the question from Marilyn from Greece. Marilyn is asking, the authentication of the data in the blockchain, who is going to check if the data are real or fake? The government or each country or the company of the blockchain? How does it work?
Well, I can answer, but I think Elisa can say the same. And this is a really known problem. This is the gatekeeper problem. So who's going to control the data inside the blockchain? Nowadays, nobody is going to control the data inside the blockchain, but it's not really needed. Why? Because if you put fake data inside the blockchain, you can put fake data inside the blockchain. This is not a problem, but you are responsible for it because they are really connected to your company. So if someone is putting something dirty, something shady, something fake inside the blockchain, is going to respond to that. And also the blockchain, even if there is a lack of legislation for the blockchain specifically, the blockchain can be used as a proof in a judgment everywhere in the world. So there are multiple cases in different states around the world where the blockchain has been used as a proof. So if you are lying inside the blockchain, you are at risk of damaging your own reputation and the reputation of your company. So my advice is do not lie inside the blockchain. Maybe there is not a gatekeeper yet, but don't do this.
So don't lie in general, but specifically also in the blockchain. So thank you very much. And Paolo is asking us, can we suggest a minimum winery dimension to eventually apply this blockchain technology?
Well, I don't think it's related to the dimension. It's more related to the data management. You need a minimum of data management to use the blockchain. Just an Excel file is enough. So if you have a good care of a specific part of your data, those data can be put in the blockchain. The only limit is if you do it manually, you are forced to do it manually every time. If you do it automatically, when you have to do once, it's done. So there is no limit. Also, the price is not something that only big companies can do. So I'm not here to speaking about prices, but with a small amount of 1,000 euro, you can start with a proof of concept project. So it's accessible to everyone.
So Mirta is asking us, I'll just make the second part of your question, Mirta, because we don't have a lot of time. Are consumers truly using and scanning the QR codes? Do you have any insight on these?
We have some insight of this, but it changed a lot from product to product, from company to company. And why? Because you need three things. You need it change based into your consumer. Maybe if you have young consumer or digitalized consumer, they are looking more than traditional consumer. You need to speak about this in your social media and marketing. You can have the best traceability all over the world, but if nobody knows, you are not going to succeed in this kind of project. So the marketing needs to follow the technical part. And also, you need to give value to this project inside your product. So if you put the QR code pure and dirty without writing anything, the consumer, he doesn't know that there is something behind. He thinks it's just the traditional QR code pointing to the company website. So if you work in the proper way and you are working in the communication together with the technical part, we are going to have a lot of success. Otherwise, nobody knows that you're doing this project, so it's not going to have those successful results. But we are measuring the results, so we know how many users are watching the digital label, and we have some other data in comparison with the GDPR.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will go with the last question due to time limit. So I'm sorry for the other one that asked the question. Sui is asking us, what do you mean by you can modify the data, but you cannot change it?
Okay, you can update the data. So you write this is the data. Then something is going wrong because you put a zero more. In the line after, you can write, I'm sorry, I commit a mistake, and this is the right amount of grapes, for example. So everyone can check that you put the first data, but then you correct the mistaken. Of course, if you correct in some days, I think if you wait 3 years for correcting this data, well, and you go in front of the judgment, the judge can say, well, this is not a correction that I can take into account. So in the blockchain, it's like the traditional way you write, I don't know the name in English, is partita doppia, the accounting, financial accounting. When you write the data in the financial accounting, and when you have to correct the data, you cannot cancel the data. You can go with a small line to cancel the data, but this must be kept visible and write the new data below. This is exactly the same with the blockchain. So it's nothing new.
Okay, so thank you very much, Edoardo, for this clarification. And thank you very much, Elisa, for being here, for your presentation, and Edoardo as well. Thank you very much, Ettore, for having organized this webinar. Yeah, Edoardo.
I just want to add another things. One last thing. The Italian government is pushing a lot with the use to the blockchain and traceability. Is inside the new strategy for the Recover Europe, for the Made in Italy, etc. And if there are some Italian company here, there is a special financing that cover the 100% of the money you need to spend to do this kind of project. So you have no excuses. Try to do the blockchain, discover what it is, and try to go inside this fabulous world.
Thank you very much, Edoardo. And Ettore, you have your microphone turned off.
I say that is a very great opportunity. Edoardo is up to June, up to August.
Is up to August, but the places are expiring, so better be hurry. I think in 2-3 weeks there will be no places. So in 1 month there will be over. So don't be shy.
Thank you very much, Edoardo. So yeah, thank you very much again, Ettore, and we will see you, I guess, in 1 week with another 3 webinars with Ettore Capri and the University Cattolica of Sacro Cuore. So thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful evening or day. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Ciao.